Hello, everyone. Class of 2021. We've missed you. We get to see every once in a while virtually, but we look forward to welcoming you back to campus soon. We thought we'd put this video together, kind of give you an update on the state of higher ed admission since there's been a lot of changes. We thought a video with a presentation would be more received than a 3-page email. So Ms. Susan and I are going to go through some things really quickly, try to make this a brief video. We assume that there'll be some additional follow-up after.
We wanted to start with just a reminder and affirmation of the philosophies we have used in this process and that we will continue to use throughout this process, while the process itself and some of the things in the process might be shifting and changing due to COVID, and we'll address that in a bit. The way in which we're going to counsel students and the philosophies that drive that counseling are going to remain the same. So students, we're going to encourage you to really stay true to your fit factors, which may have shifted given the last few months, but we are still going to encourage you to stay true to those. We still want each of you to find multiple college homes where you will be happy and challenged and supported. We want to make sure that each of you has a balanced list of schools that meet your needs and that are going to provide you those multiple options come April. And the more you engage in this process with us, with your schools, with the work involved in it, the greater likelihood for success. And I think that will be even more true this year than it has been in the past. Ask questions when you have them. This is a evolving process, I would say, is a good way to characterize it right now. Don't hesitate to ask questions. There are no silly questions in this process. And again, the more you engage with us, with your schools, the better we think this process will go for you.
So a little bit of context of what the next 5-6 minutes will look like. We're going to be talking about the impact of college changes in the admission office at the macro level, We're not going to be able to address everything, every college for every student. Obviously, we want you to take what you hear today and use that to ask your individual questions, either about your individual situation or your individual schools. I think it's also important that we address there is a hierarchy of schools in terms of resources. Those schools with greater resources, those schools with higher selectivities and billion-dollar endowments are more resilient to some of these changes than others. So when we're talking about schools with single-digit selectivity, we may not see as many of these changes that we're going to discuss at those schools as we would with schools with a little bit of a higher selectivity number. Things, as Ms. Souza said in the last slide, are fluid. They're constantly changing. We're getting emails daily, having conversations on a regular basis. If something shifts drastically at the macro level, we will certainly inform you of it as soon as possible. What we're talking about today and some of the conclusions that we're coming to are based upon our decades of experience, as well as more recently, a lot of Zoom and phone conversations with our friends on the college side at schools around the country.
So let's talk a little bit about what we do know and where some of these changes might be coming from. So higher education, colleges, universities are like any other business in this COVID-19 situation. They are not immune to it, and they are feeling the impact, and that will cause them to shift and change in a variety of ways, one of the ways being the admissions process. We obviously know testing has been a major, or has seen a major disruption, a loss of opportunities to take them, which has forced a large majority of four-year colleges to potentially become test optional. Some are using the terminology of test flexible as well. Some really aren't interested in making this change, but are responding to the fact that many students have not had the opportunity to test, and the future of testing is still unknown as we look to the fall, August, September, October. Visits are a huge thing that has changed on both sides. Again, while you students and parents and families haven't been able to visit, and that has really influenced you, it's also something that the colleges are dealing with. They're certainly trying to increase their virtual opportunities, improve what may have been existing virtual opportunities, but they're also missing some information that they would have typically wanted as they move through this process. And finally, priorities, right? Admissions and their policies are important on college's campus, but they're not always the front and center point. And so admissions offices are having to respond to whatever priorities that campus, that university, that college may have. So it's something to keep in mind and not something that's really finalized. A great example, we have seen more recently some public universities that are coming out with changes regarding their testing policies much later than a lot of private colleges. And because there's a lot that goes into those changes. So again, really understanding that priorities are still shifting and will continue to shift.
Sorry, I got a little quick on the slide advancer there. So what does this impact mean to you as applicants? And obviously we're talking to students and families here, but what do these changes mean? The loss of data is the first thing we want to address. There's going to be more students applying test optional. There's actually going to be some students out there that don't have test scores to share, even if they would want to. We have to think about the country as a whole there. I truly believe that. I think that our August tests are going to happen, the August SATs and the September ACT season, like they're going to happen in the Northeast. They're probably not happening in Florida and Texas. So in different pockets, there's testing concerns. Our schools are trying to be sensitive to that, but they're going to lose a data point because most of these schools use test scores in some way, shape, or form to make a decision. Without that data point, they're going to place a little bit more emphasis or a lot more emphasis on the data that they do have. So things like grades, strength of schedule, essays, teacher recommendations, potential demonstrated interest, those things will carry a little bit more weight because of the loss potentially of test scores. We've talked to a lot of admissions people who said, hey, the more familiar information we can get from students and families, the more comfortable we will be making decisions. So we talk about the fact that Archmere had grades in the second semester, where some schools do not. This is where we will also address, if you have a test score and you're happy with it, and it's strong in comparison to what the school is expecting, that's a really good thing, okay? A strong test score is never a bad thing. I will quote my friend from Tufts, JT Duck. He said, strong test scores are never a bad thing. Strong curriculums, going to a strong academic institution like Archmere is never going to be a bad thing. And demonstrated interest, while we believe, hey, I can't visit this school, you can still engage with this school. You can still do the virtual visit. You can still reach out to the admission counselors. We will still have visits virtually at Archmere this fall. Those are all opportunities, one, to show that you're interested, two, to learn more information about the school, to make your actual application more thoughtful. Binding applications is something that will definitely, probably at most schools, have a greater strength. We've always seen, if we look at data, that early decision acceptance rates are generally higher than regular decision or early action. I think as schools are now apprehensive about students being able to make earlier decisions because they haven't visited a lot of their schools, or they're concerned about their test scores, we're seeing some schools be concerned about, what is my early decision pool going to look like? Johns Hopkins just added early decision 2 last week, I believe as a reaction to, we're not sure what our early decision 1 numbers are going to look like. And if you think about, in an uncertain time, an early decision accepted student yields or enrolls at a 99% rate. That's as much certainty as we're going to get these days. So schools will like early decision applicants or early decision 2 applicants. And I think we'll see those acceptance rates rise a little bit at many schools. We will also see resources potentially influence decisions. There's always been schools out there that are open and honest and state, we are, we'll use the term need blind or need aware. So for an example, University of Miami meets full need. They came out last week and said the only way we can continue to do that is if we are need aware in some of our decisions, which means they may allow finances to impact admissions decisions. And we may see a little bit more of that this year. It will be an atypical admission cycle. There will be more decisions than normal that Ms. Susan and I will be surprised by. Hopefully, we'll be optimistic about that, and we'll see more good decisions, and we'll be surprised by those. I think if you're looking at the first 3 bullet points, you'll see, some of these might help me. And I probably wouldn't disagree with you on those things. So I don't want to say we're completely optimistic about every decision that will be rendered for our students, but there will be some decisions this year that probably make us scratch our heads a little bit. The room at the end is one that this is something that's been thrown out there a lot, that we're going to see a lot of students defer from the class of 2020, which means there will be less room for the class of 2021. While I will not guarantee you that won't be the case at some schools, I would say at 99% of schools, it's going to be the exact opposite. If we think about a student that defers this late in the process, they will not be replaced by another student, which means they will eventually, if they do decide to enroll later, they're just going to take their own spot back. If we look at the reasons why our enrollments at colleges and universities will be lower, less international students, potentially some of the students that defer actually never enrolling, which is going to happen. We are going to probably see less students apply to college this year in terms of the class of 2021, either because they see less value in the college experience or their family resources don't allow it. So now we see even less competition there. So I think, and schools, if they haven't filled their freshman classes this year, will have to find ways to fill enrollment in another way. And a larger freshman class rather than a smaller freshman class, I think is what we're going to see in a lot of cases. There are certainly a lot of wild cards in this process. I think generally when we see crisis like the pandemic, we see students enrolling and applying to schools closer to home, okay? And we also see families more concerned about cost. So we'll go back to the money might talk a little bit more. We'll address the cost issue. We also have students that are applying to schools maybe a little bit farther away. That diversity might have a little bit of a greater impact than it does in past years. So a lot of things on this screen, some you might say impact me, some you might say doesn't impact me at all, some you might have questions about. That's where we expect follow-up in the next couple of weeks so we can get your questions answered.
And some to be determined possible changes, some that we've already seen, some that we expect we may see. So change of application deadlines. We expect that we may see some schools shifting deadlines for a variety of different reasons. This may be for accessibility. Georgia Tech has just done this, making sure that their deadlines align with times in which their office is open. So rather than the standard sort of January 1st when nobody is really working, shifting that a bit. We've also seen Princeton do this. So they have done away with their single choice early action this year and will only do a regular decision. So we assume that some schools, and again, will continue to shift potentially or change their application deadlines. Changing of application process. So Mr. Bohm already mentioned things such as Johns Hopkins adding early decision 2. The test optional piece we know has been a huge change for a lot of schools to the application process. We may continue to see more of these shifts. Demonstrated interest, again, being redefined by schools. We believe that demonstrated interest will still be important, but the way in which schools define what interest is going to shift into virtual and other ways. Campus visits. There are schools that are slowly beginning to open for campus visits. They are typically incredibly restricted and requiring advance notification. Some schools are doing one family every hour or two. If and when you are able to get on campuses, we have to recognize that they are going to feel very different. You will not be in large open house settings, and colleges on the flip side aren't going to be able to have those things. So both sides, again, campus visits are continuing to shift, and while not ideal, there are still many ways to learn about colleges, as Mr. Bohm said, and many ways for schools to figure out what your interest level might be. Adjusting of the academic calendar, we've seen schools like Notre Dame and South Carolina come out and state that they're bringing students back to campus earlier so that they can conclude the semester at Thanksgiving. We've seen some other schools that are keeping their calendar the same, but moving to a virtual after Thanksgiving to avoid having students on campus in sort of the height of what is typical flu season and might be further complicated by the pandemic. So we'll see some of that. As Mr. Bohm said, again, the potential for some larger freshman classes for a variety of different reasons. And last but not least, the closing and merging of different colleges, which we've already seen locally here with Wellesley being acquired by Dell State. So again, some real changes that again have already started to happen, and we predict will continue to change.
So where should we go from here? What should we do? We should adapt, but we shouldn't stop. We need to engage. After you watch this video, whatever questions you have, please email us. We need to do a Zoom call. We need to do a phone call. We can just answer your questions by email. That is why we're here. We're here to get questions answered. And while this presentation is at the macro level, Ms. Susan and I enjoy more talking to you about your individual situation and hopefully being able to help. Please continue to engage the colleges and universities that you are interested in through virtual visits, through contacts. Again, we will go back to the fact that if schools are losing data that they use to make decisions, those things that they do have, they're going to use stronger, or they're going to give more value to it. So demonstrated interest, essays, recommendations, those things are still things that you can influence. That's still things that haven't been completed yet. Please focus on those things. We've had some essay sessions. We have some more essay sessions because we believe it's an important part of the application. It might be even more important this year. I think we always gather information from a lot of different people during this process. Just be wary that this is a different year. So an uncle or an aunt or a friend, a parent, who's been through it in another year, this will be different. It's going to look different. As we said, decisions are going to be different. There are some recommendations in terms of what we would have you do that are going to be a little different. We're going to have to talk to you about your test scores with probably each individual school in some cases in terms of how comfortable you are, and strategically should you or should you not submit them. So just be wary. If you're hearing things and are concerned about it, again, pick up the phone, shoot us an email. We're happy to help. Virtual visits, as Ms. Souza said, some people are open for business. In terms of visits, they're going to feel really different. Still try to engage, still try to get the information that you need, research websites, ask questions of the schools. You really need to ask questions. If you can't find the information on their website, ask the admission office. If you want to talk to somebody on that campus, please ask to. We're going to get our information to help us make decisions about applications and enrollment in different ways than we have and students have in the past. Okay, please make sure you check out all our communications. Obviously, common application. We're recommending that the common part, along with the essay, be completed before the summer is over. We will have essay reviews. We've had those available all summer. We'll have individual essay sessions continuing in August, mock interviews. We'll continue to send out testing communications, and we will have our college reps will be visiting virtually this fall, but we will still gather you together. So there'll be that camaraderie and that understanding that this is the process that we're still engaging in, and we will try to make it feel we're still going to give you the opportunity to talk to the individuals that will probably be one of the readers of your application. And that's a powerful thing. We can make this process a little more personable. And that's what Ms. Susan and I want to do. We want to help you. We're eager to get started or continue, but it really feels like you get started after the summer. We're going to get started on working on these applications. We're going to get started on submitting these applications, and we're going to talk about them on a regular basis. So please, I hope I speak for Ms. Souza and myself and Mrs. Lyon, as we're eager to get started with you on the implementation part of your process, help you make some good decisions along the way, and make sure that you're doing your best to make sure you get the decisions that you hope for. God bless, stay healthy, stay optimistic, and we look forward to seeing you in the real near future. Take care, everybody. It was good seeing you.
Thanks, guys.